I will now call to order the Monday, July 25th, 2011 meeting of the Sioux Falls City Council. Welcome to our guests here at Carnegie and to those that are watching us on Channel 16 and those that are watching by web streaming. We'll start out today's meeting with our City Council staff report by Deborah Owen, our City Clerk, Chief of Council Operations. Deborah?
Thank you and good afternoon, Sioux Falls City Council. If I could talk to you a little bit about the commission to redistrict our city, which will begin this Wednesday at 9 a.m. The agenda is out to the public and it is an open public meeting, so all are invited to attend. We have before you and available online and then for handouts is kind of a working agenda or a flow chart in terms of when we hope to have this project done and back to council. As you know, we have an April election. There'll be likely a November election that the council will have a first reading on next Monday, but the April election, it will be affected by the districts and redistricting those. And so this is our working document for us to look at. We have some things that charter stipulates in terms of the number of days between public hearings and then the council receiving a report. And so those are incorporated into this document for your reference. But you can see the timeline is fairly tight, that they'll meet this Wednesday at 9 and then they'll decide the rest of their meetings as they meet as a group. They'll also then need to select their chair from amongst the 5 appointed members of the council or of the commission appointed by the council. In addition, they have about the month of August to get all of this done, and we have their final deadline week will be that first week in September. They will make their selection to bring to a public hearing. We need to publish that and give enough public notice to let them know to attend and to give feedback to the commission as they will do on the public hearing on the 18th. And then later the commission will bring this report to the council in a formal meeting, a 7 o'clock meeting. The council has 21 days to reject the plan, or you can, if you don't reject it within 21 days, it's deemed adopted, and then we just need to change the ordinances in our books now with those new boundaries for the new election. So all of this we hope to have done by the end of this year, as we'll have candidates who will soon begin to take an interest in the 4 council seats that will be up for election or re-election in April of 2012. Any questions?
Questions for Deborah? Thank you.
Pardon me, I should just add one more thing. We have one of the planning department works very closely with the clerk's office on this project, and Jeff Schmidt from planning works very closely with the commission. He's done that for at least 3 commissions thus far, creating maps and looking at those apportionment of voters in those districts for the commission. So I just wanted to say thank you to Jeff as well.
Thank you. Next, we have a report from Councilor Brown on last Monday's fiscal committee meeting.
The fiscal committee moved the contract authorization proposal forward to the full council, and so that will be coming probably in August.
Any questions for Councilor Brown? If not, I would ask Councilor Rolfing, would you give us a preview for today's land use meeting?
Busy schedule on land use. We're going to be looking at a signed study group along with annexation program and annexation program for Sioux Falls, along with community development partnership program. Most of them are 2 of them by Mr. Schmidt and 1 by Darren Smith. So we'll have a busy meeting right after this one.
Thank you. Any questions for Councilor Rolfing? Thank you. Now we'll go on to City Council open discussion. Does anyone have any items for open discussion? Councilor Brown.
Thank you, Councilor Aguilar. I sit on the ballot question committee, and today we did receive an email with what I believe to be the final number, which is $115 million. I'm wondering if there's a plan to address the council in terms of the difference between the $110 million versus now the $115 million.
Director Turback.
I can try to answer that. Thank you. Tracy Turback with the Finance Office. I believe the plan would be on August 1st to have Mark Cotter here, Public Works Director, as well as a representative from Mortensen Construction, I believe, is also intending to be available for that meeting on the 1st or the 8th.
If I may. So we won't have any update until next week on the extra $5 million cost?
In terms of as a group, I'm not aware of any. I think Mark was planning to get out some communication to the council in advance, sometime this week yet.
Thank you.
Director Turbeck, will that be at the informational or at the city council meeting? That Mortensen and...
I guess I'm not certain. I assume it would be at the council meeting when the ordinance is up for first reading. But.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Jameson.
I have a couple of items. Excuse me, remember a few months ago when we passed that RV ordinance to allow temporary parking of RVs? Why, you're all smiling like, yeah, it was a good time. Well, there was one piece that I meant to correct with that, and that was some of the definitions. Either way, the idea is those four-wheelers that people are driving around, little ATVs, if they're licensed to be on the street, as the rules are today, you can still not park those in your driveway. So it has to be in the garage or behind your house or some other place. But it just seems like an evolution of occurrences that have occurred that who would have thought people would be driving those as a vehicle of transportation. But as long as they're licensed and registered and insured like any other vehicle, it seems appropriate that they would be able to park them in their driveway if they should want. They can't park them on their grass in the front of their house, but if they're using them as a vehicle and licensed like a vehicle, should we allow them to be parked in a driveway like a vehicle? It's just a little catch-up work I thought I would bring up to see what your thoughts were, but it seems like an easy fix. But I wanted to bring it up to the council that is something I'm looking at correcting.
Councilor Jameson, are you looking at taking that back then to the Land Use Committee?
If it's deemed necessary by the group, it certainly could go that way, but it's certainly up to you as a group to decide.
Will this have a time on it, like 14 days or 21 days again?
No, I think it would be just like any regular vehicle, just like your own personal vehicle. In fact, like a motorcycle. If you have a motorcycle, you can park it in your driveway. It's licensed. So it's just a kind of a change of, I know I see the big smiles. It's really, who'd have thought, but I think it's a simple correction. But certainly if land use would like to look at it, I would certainly.
Land use would entertain it. Yeah.
All right, thank you. And one other item, if I could. Today I spoke at my Cosmopolitan Club, which is a great group of people. You should all come. But anyway, the topic today was the event center, and the issue was for me to update everybody on what's going on and the price, financing, naming rights. I did my best. I did a pretty good job, I think. I tried to stay pretty neutral and positive, just the facts. But one of the things that came out of it is that talking about the resolution coming forward to send it to a public vote, that issue came up in the timeline. But through this discussion, we learned that this council will actually not vote to approve or not approve of the plan proposed by the administration. We'll vote to send it to a public vote, but we're actually not going to weigh in on whether we like it or not. We're sending it right on to the public. So the analogy we used was like a jury sitting and listening to testimony for a year almost on this topic, but yet we won't cast a vote. We're just sending it to a public vote. So I didn't know if we wanted to think about that. I mean, Kenny, Vernon, and I voted on the last Event Center Task Force, whether we approved that plan or not, but I don't see us voting on that as scheduled yet, unless you guys see something happening, but I don't see that.
Councilor Anderson, Jr.
Well, Greg, I think, the first step was the council voting on the plan, and we did that. We passed that along now, or hopefully will be passing that along to a vote. Once that vote is completed, if it is approved, then we vote on the bonds that will be used to pay for that. So yes, we will have a voice in this, and I think a very strong voice, because we're the ones that are going to decide how it's going to be paid for.
Right. In fact, I proposed a resolution that is going to commit us to adhering to what the public tells us they want. But the argument that came out is the fact that the council is not going to be providing any leadership on this issue to the public. And we've heard more than anybody. And we've paid attention probably more than anybody should on this one topic. But we will not be providing any leadership to our constituents or to the public about how we feel. Only after the election, well, certainly everybody's going to go with the majority of whatever the election outcome is. That's easy. But prior to that, we are not.
And I'm going to strongly disagree with you again.
Okay.
For the last few months, we've been discussing this over publicly. We had a vote where we split 4-4. Each one of us had a chance to speak our minds about this. And I believe we are still speaking our minds out publicly about this in some of the events or places that I've been. So I still feel that we are able to speak how we feel about this project, and that people do listen and understand, I think, everyone's positions here.
Councilor Erpenbach.
I would just add, Councilor Jameson, that we do not have to send it to a vote of the people. We could decide as a council to build it or not, to bond for it or not.
Right.
We have made that choice, and really, as our attorney said the other day, we vowed to send it to the people. And so, Councilor Anderson's right. We've said our piece, and we have our piece in terms of whether we're going to fund it or not. But in terms of that final, vote, that we said all along that we were sending it to the people. But if you would like to change that and try to get the council to just do it without a public vote, more power to you, hon.
Well, it just seems a little bit of a misstep. So I just thought I'd bring it up for discussion. If it's not, that's just the way I see it. But
Councilor Antonin.
I think what's really interesting here is that we have had significant input into the process. There's a couple of us that have been on the design committee. There's been a lot of public input as far as what the needs are, recognizing that, in the hockey or the basketball configuration is what it has to be, how it's going to go on to the convention center as proposed. I think the experts have kind of dictated the best way, the most economical way of getting it done. I think some of the pictures that we've seen, some of the plans, the renderings to date have been fairly excited, and the comments that I've heard from people out in the public is that they're very happy with what they're seeing, and it is exciting, and it's starting to build some enthusiasm. I think what we have promised all along is that it's going to be up to the citizens of Sioux Falls to make the final decision whether or not they're going to approve of an event center or not. And for us to sit here and to say, yes, we approve of it, and therefore you need to approve of it, or we don't approve of it, and therefore you shouldn't approve of it, I think we all need to make our own peace with ourselves, and if we're in favor of it, we're in favor of it. If you believe we need an event center in Sioux Falls, we need to go forward with it and let the experts explain to us, along with the input of everybody that's been involved, and there's been significant folks that have been asked to be involved in this process. So I think that the way we're going, I think, is good. I think ultimately it's going to be up to us to show it, to recommend or not recommend that it go to a vote in November. But I really do believe firmly that it should be the citizens that make the decision, and shame on us or shame on the administration if we do not give them enough information to make an educated decision whether or not we should do it, from the financing to the design or whatever it is. I think ultimately the people will have the choice to do it, and I think that's the way it should be.
Councilor Karski.
Yes, Councilor Jameson, just curious, are you just saying that we should go on record as a council that we support this design plan at this location with these specifications? Because, I mean, as a council, I guess we haven't said, we said we're going to spend this much money if it's approved, and we've already decided on a location as a group, I guess, a split vote, but is it more the final product that you're looking, or the whole issue?
well, it just seems like a natural progression that if we're going to send a question to the public, the thing that I keep getting asked is, what do you think? what do you think about this whole event center deal? And I share that with them. We have a conversation. But I think the public is also wondering what the council thinks as a group. And if the question is, well, the council feels like, well, we're just going to send it to the public. We're not going to make any decision. We're just going to let the public decide. Well, we spent a year and a half, or I'm sorry, a year at least, maybe, discussing this item to great detail. And that data, that decision, that process is just going to go out the window. That's how I see it.
Counselor Anderson Jr.
Well, I look at this, I feel we've had 10 years of discussion with this. We've had public meetings, we've had 2 different task forces, we've had a lot of public discussion and informationals and council meetings. We've had hours of testimony from citizens who came to the podium and told us how they felt. I feel that, and I hope that we do have a vote in November. And what I will say here publicly is if the citizens of Sioux Falls say no to an event center after a vote, you know, when it comes down to if we ever do look at voting on the bonds, if the citizens say no, I will also say no, and I think probably a lot of our colleagues here. So we are listening, and we are trying to get that information out. I think that that's the biggest part of this whole equation now, is that the mayor and his team have gone out into our city and spoken to groups about this plan, and now it's time for the council to decide if they're going to support it or be against it, and also go out and speak in public about this. I think that that's what our next step has to be.
Counselor Brown.
Councilor Jamison, I just want to clarify, because you had mentioned the earlier vote under the previous task force, where the previous council voted, I believe, if memory serves me, 7-1 to endorse the 7-2, 6-2 to endorse that plan, and that's you're looking for some sort of endorsement of the plan prior to the public vote. Is that correct? Is that what you're looking for?
That's just what I'm expecting, but it doesn't seem like that's going to happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would agree. There's nothing today that
the council is deciding nothing.
And even at that time, we had that council had agreed too that there would be a public vote.
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
Counselor Rolfing.
Seems to me that we did that when we allocated $500,000 to have them go ahead with the preliminary drawings and things like that. That would have been a pretty significant vote that we took at that time, 8-0, I believe, to go ahead and say, yep, we agree, we need an event center, and let's go ahead and get the drawings up and going and do the preliminary work on it, and let's find out what it is. Now, agreed, we did not vote on what the findings were exactly, except for the vote we had a couple weeks ago here, or 3 weeks ago. But we spent some money on this thing, and I think all along we pretty much said yes, 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 and so to me we pretty well gone with it.
Counselor Jamison.
Well, at least I'm glad we're having a discussion about this. The clarification was probably 5-3, supporting the 500,000. And please assure me that because we voted for 500,000, that we were just not going to sit here and not say another thing and only rely on the public to make this decision. Okay, that's not what you're thinking. All I'm trying to do is get the council a little involved in this major process, other than just sitting on the bench here and listening and waiting for the public to tell us what they think.
Counselor Anderson Jr.
So would, Councilman Jamison, question, would you then support a resolution to have the council vote on supporting this plan?
I think it's only probably the responsible thing to do as a council.
Okay. Can we pass that to leadership? And, you know, I guess if that's something we need to vote on, then, or would like to, that would be the wishes of the council.
Counselor Erpenbach.
My question is, what would the resolution be? What more can we say? I guess maybe I'm not following the train of thought, but I don't know what the resolution would be.
Yeah.
We would need advice from the council on something like that.
The line,
Coun-
or go ahead.
Counselor Antonin?
I guess that's the question that I would have for Michelle, too. But on the other hand, I would also suggest that it is my belief that we have all had significant input into this process. There's been significant debate and discussion with the input that we received from staff, also with the input that we received from the professionals that we have out there. I think we have all voiced our opinion as far as where we thought it should be. I think we all campaigned on the issue that we thought that there was a need for an event center. I know I did, and I know I've expressed my viewpoint all along that I believe that this is the process that we're doing. The information we've been given by the administration has been quite significant, and we have never been at this. And I agree with Vernon. You were right, Vernon. The previous consuls, what they did approve was the resolution to accept the report of the task forces that were asked to serve. That was what the vote was that the city councils had, because I made the presentation to that one where they accepted our report as they did on the 04-05. They voted to accept the report and move forward with whatever the funding or whatever the vote or anything was. But I do believe that at this point in time, the administration has brought it forward. We did vote on the site location with the idea that that's where the placement was going to be. We're presenting the information to the citizens of Sioux Falls to make the decision. And who are we to tell them whether we expect them to pass it or we expect them to vote it down? I think that we need to make the case that we just present the information to the citizens and we go forward with this like Kenny suggested. And I plan on listening to them. Let them make the decision, and I believe that's the prudent thing to do.
Counselor Erpenbach?
You know, I guess I went to the Thursday morning presentation that added some sort of, as we've said all along, meat to the bone on this project. One of the things I remember the mayor saying very clearly was, if you've got ideas, you've been to an event center and you like XYZ thing, let them know. You know, we're still in the way early design phases. If you like lots of glass, or you think the whatever event center looked really cool because it had this kind of stairway or whatever, this is the time for that input. But it's not just going to come from us. It's going to come from lots of folks, because I would never. I mean, we've said all along that it needs that. It needs the basketball court. It needs the full-size hockey. It needs, you know, all these things. Well, then you build around that, you know. So I'm not sure that we need to have input on what it looks like, and we've had tons of input on what it's going to cost and where it's going to be.
Any other discussion to come before the council? Counselor Jamieson?
Just to remind the group that we do have a fiscal committee meeting tomorrow here at 4 o'clock. We've got 4 reports coming. Audit? Did I say fiscal? Audit. We got money on the brain. We've got a street operational audit. We've got a arena Orpheum Theater contract audit, police cash handling audit, and a CAFR review, as well as other discussion. But if you've got time, stop by.
Thank you. A reminder to the council that starting next week, we start our budget hearings. So our meetings will begin at 3 o'clock. And we have 3 budget hearings set at this point. And next week, we will need to set our working sessions. We will need probably 2 for sure, maybe 3. Also a reminder that we will not have any committee meetings during the month of August because of the budget hearings. So if you could all bring your calendars next week so we can start working through those dates for our working sessions. Is there any other business to come before the council under open discussion? Councilor Anderson, Jr.
Just a little statement. As we now end the month of July, I ask everybody to take a look back over this month. Look at the different events that we've had the month of July here in Sioux Falls, whether they be music, whether they just be multicultural, the different events that we've had, the Jazz Fest, the Hot Harley Nights, Hot Summer Nights, the Rock Fest over the last weekend, Sculpture Walk, everything that we have going on during the summertime. Wouldn't it also be nice to have a facility that could handle events in the wintertime? Just something to think about.
Thank you. Any other Comments? If not, we'll go on to our presentations. We'll start with Director Turbeck, Director of Finance, with our June monthly financial report.
Good afternoon. Tracy Turback with the Finance Office. You should have received by now your copy of the monthly financial status report that the Finance Office produces every month, and I'll take a few minutes here to go through a few slides on some economic indicators and kind of a snapshot on where we are as we are at a midpoint in our fiscal year. One of the key economic indicators that we do track is the unemployment rate here locally. You will see that the green line for 2011, the unemployment rate has continued to come down with the latest data indicating for May that we were at a 4.6% unemployment rate, which at this point in the year is lower than both 2009 and 2010. The state statistics indicate that in May we had 1,100 more workers in the Sioux Falls MSA than what we had in May of 2010. So that's certainly a positive indication. One area that is sluggish and is trailing certainly what we would like to see is the construction sector of the economy. The monthly building permit values for June were almost identical to what they had been in June of the prior 2 years. Year to date, the values are about equal in 2011 through June where we were in 2009. We are trailing the 2010 construction values by about 15%, which certainly is not an insurmountable gap to overtake in the balance of the year, but we could certainly use some significant construction projects in the community. Sales tax collections is another indicator that we track. These are the complete collections that include what I might refer to as our regular sales tax collections, in addition to audit collections that the state remits to us periodically. The green line is the current year, 2011, and at using that data, we are at a 1.1% increase over a year ago. And as you've heard me mention in the past, because of the audit collections that have occurred in 2010 and now in June of 2011, that number is somewhat misleading. In 2010, we had a significant positive audit collection that was remitted to the city in January, and in June of this year, the state made a significant negative audit adjustment. Some entity a retailer had overpaid or over-remitted its sales taxes, and so in June, when that was discovered through an audit, the State Department of Revenue deducts that from the payment that we received in June. So that tends to hold down the overall collections for the year, but it doesn't really give a true indication of kind of what's going on in the retail economy here locally for this year. This next chart does give you, I think, a cleaner look at the underlying local retail economy. This is a rolling 12-month growth rate through June, and you can see for the 12 months ended June 30th of this year compared to the prior year, their sales tax collections, excluding the audits, are up 4.9%. So that paints a significantly different picture when you filter out some of those unusual audit payments. In terms of the overall general fund, revenue and expenditures, overall we are tracking very close to where we would expect to under the budget. On the revenue side of the ledger, we've collected about 49% of what our budgeted revenues are for the year. Last year at the midpoint of the year we had collected about 47%, so we're running a little bit ahead in terms of the percent of budget for the revenues. On the expenditure side, we have expended about 46% of the budget through the midpoint of the year. Last year we were at about 44%, so we're tracking very, very closely to where where we would expect to overall for the general fund. The next couple slides, I'll drill down a little bit. This first one is in the revenue category. You can see that for the last 09, 2010, and 2011 year to date, you can see both sales taxes and property taxes are increasing each year. Of course, we'd like to see those sales tax dollars step up even more before the end of this year. Intergovernmental revenues, I think, are noteworthy. Have been decreasing, and the significant decrease this year, of course, relates to the bank franchise tax that dropped off significantly very early in this year, and you've seen that on the reports now, I believe, since January or February. On the expenditure side, again, we're tracking very much in line with what our budget expectations would be in almost every area. However, as I mentioned in my overview comments in the written report, and it should be no surprise to anyone, the early months of the year we did incur significant snow removal costs, and those have had a significant impact on the overall snow removal budget. I believe the mayor will probably touch on that in his budget address on Thursday, and I believe Public Works Director Mark Cotter will fully brief the council when he comes before you with his budget presentation in a couple of weeks. So, with that, I would certainly entertain any questions at the chair's discretion.
Councilor Karski.
Thank you, Councilor Aguilar. Tracy, I noticed on the financial overview, under the general fund, you wrote that although highways and streets may appear to be within budgetary range, expended year-to-date early snow events and precipitation, basically what you just have talked about, we're going to be short the resources we need to complete the year. How are we going to make up for that? Where's that going to come from?
Well, again, it's difficult to say at this point of the year. I'm not a meteorologist. I certainly am not going to forecast what the weather will do, but we're just raising a concern at this point that based on the amount of snow events that we had early in the year, the amount of precipitation events and ice removal that the street department had encountered in the first quarter of this year, we are running ahead of where we would like to be with snow removal costs. The budget has not been depleted. The snow removal budget is not depleted at this point, but I think it does bear some further investigation and further analysis to see what, if any, we do need to contemplate to get us through the end of the year. And I think that's something that Public Works Director Cotter would be better suited to address the council on here when he talks about his budget before I believe he's scheduled for the 15th of August.
Okay.
Councilor Brown.
Tracy, in the monthly financial report, I need a clarification on page 3, the bunch municipal sales, use tax collections, accrual basis. Is under the lodging tax, it indicates that it's up 13%. I'm guessing the years are wrong there, though. It shows 2010s, and I think it looks like the lodging tax would actually be down then. Is that correct?
I believe you're correct. The date is wrong. I can see it has 2010 at the top of each column. The column on the left should be 2011.
So we're down about $40,000, it looks like.
No, it'll be $273,000 this year versus $242,000 for the first 6 months last year.
Oh, okay.
So it is up significantly.
Got it. I see. I was looking at the wrong line. Thank you.
I appreciate you pointing out the date correction, though.
Councilor Erpenbach.
Tracy, in that same package that Vernon was just looking at, page 2, and I have to say again, I appreciate the PowerPoints that we look at. I appreciate the sort of trending that we look at. That's very helpful. But then some of us spend a little more time. I'd like to look at the bottom of page 2. You and I had an email conversation about this today, and I did make a copy ask the clerks to make copies for everyone. I asked Director Turbeck to break out line 22, Event Center, the $500,000 that we appropriated in this year's budget. And then there should be a sheet on your desk that has that line item broken out to expenses and where it's at. Tracy, could you walk through that for us, and then also talk to us about the report we saw last week from Ide Bailey and where that fits in that breakout? Would you do that for me? Thank you.
You'd like me to go through the list of vendors that are being paid from that?
Right,
that
exactly.
budget? Okay.
And talk about, I guess, several parts, I apologize. The number that says, on the line item budget says $535,000, and I guess we keep saying we appropriated $500,000. I need to know why that's a little different. And then the Ide Bailey piece, and just if you could just walk through it so that folks hear it on in the room.
Okay, I'll do my best. Starting off, the budget amount of $535,000 reflects the original budget of $500,000 plus the amount of supplemental appropriation that the council authorized for the naming rights analysis. A portion of that, you might recall, $35,000 was to come from the capital fund, and the balance of it was to come from the community development, their operational budget, which is not part of the capital fund. So that explains the $35,000 difference on the budget amount. In terms of the vendors that have been paid or where we have funds encumbered out of that $535,000, Tegra Group Incorporated. Tegra is the company that's been working as the owner's representative on the project, and I believe that's been money very well spent in terms of working with the construction manager at risk and the architects in terms of representing the city's best interest, somebody that has expertise in constructing these kinds of facilities. You can see that that amount has been almost entirely expended. Almost $33,000 of the $35,000 has been expended, and the balance on their contract would be a little over $2,000. Sink Combs is, of course, you folks are familiar with them. They are the primary architect on the project. That it was budgeted, or the share of the budget that takes up is $340,000, with about $203,000 that has been expended, $96,000 that is still under contract with them, which is considered encumbered, and then there's a balance available that has not been encumbered yet at this point of $40,000. Mortensen, the construction manager at risk, we've got an amount in there of the budget of $70,000 with $15,000 expended and $15,000 still under contract that is encumbered but has not yet been expended. So in other words, they're still working through their contract. I expect we'll be updating that number in the very near future. AECOM, that was the company that did the economic impact analysis. Their contract was for $30,000 and they have been paid in full. Superlative Group, the amount budgeted is $35,000. That is the naming rights analysis. You can see that they have been paid $32,500 and there remains a balance of $2,500. And then the last item in the budget that makes up the full $535,000 is a $25,000 item for legal services, and that is completely under contract, although none of it has actually been paid out at this point. Have I covered all of your questions? Or?
The follow-up then would be the Ide Bailey report that we received last week, the agreed-upon procedures report. How does that fit into the numbers that you just read for us?
That analysis was, at least in my view, wasn't the type of work that you would capitalize as part of a project, and so I didn't believe it was appropriate to pay for it out of capital funds, so that will be paid out of the finance office operating budget.
Great, thank you very much.
Councilor Brown.
Two questions. What is the cost of the Ide Bailey report? Do you know?
The contract was not to exceed $7,000.
And then, and I apologize, but the Tegra Group, that's a contract I've not heard of before. Can you give me a better sense of understanding what it is they did?
And again, a lot of the work that they did, I believe, was even before I was on board here, so I'm going to have to kind of shoot from the hip a little bit on that. They are, again, an owner's representative, so when it comes time to negotiate the contract, for example, with the architect or with the construction manager at risk, they are involved in reviewing the documents, sitting at the table when those negotiations are taking place, and looking out for the city's best interest. Obviously, when you're negotiating a contract with a construction company, they are certainly there to look out for their own best interest. Tegra would be at the table and have presumably an equitable level of expertise in that area to speak for the city's best interest.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Director Turbach? Councilor Jameson.
Tracy, some time ago, we talked about the receiving a report. The fiscal committee was going to look at just the total number of dollars that we receive from the federal government, total number of dollars we receive from the state. Just with the doom and gloom and the federal level, has your office had a chance to put that report together for us?
I believe that information was compiled. I take it from your question you did not receive that.
I don't remember seeing it. If others saw it and I didn't, maybe let me know, but
Yeah, it was not compiled by the finance office, but I do believe I saw a copy come through, so I can follow up on that and make sure a copy gets sent out to all of you.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Director Turbach? If not, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll next hear from Interim Library Director Jody Fick on the West Side Branch Library update. Welcome, Jody.
Welcome. I am here today with Mark Auspis from Architecture Incorporated to give you an update on the progress of the West Side Branch Library. We started work on designing back in March and have had frequent meetings between our building committee and our staff and the architects, and as well as 3 public meetings in May, June, and July, and have some exciting plans to share with you. The West Side Branch Library is going to be built on the west side of Sioux Falls, ironically, and on the corner of 26th Street and Discovery Avenue in the Memorial Park complex. And I'm going to turn it over to Mark.
Thank you, Jody. As Jody mentioned, we had 3 public hearings, and most of the council people here today have attended at least one of those. And we really appreciate that because we look for the input. As Jody mentioned, we're at the corner of 26th Street and Discovery Avenue in Sioux Falls, just south of Discovery Elementary School. And this is a great site. You can see that there's a big dark patch in the middle of the site that represents a wetlands or a pothole, or we've heard lots of names for that little scratch in the ground, but and we've discussed it at length, and I'll mention how we are intending to deal with that in a minute. Some of our staff has been working with Jody and Joan at the library quite extensively in programming the building. We did these diagrams that represent the sizes of the various spaces. They're color-coded, and I won't go into the details, but a very extensive programming process that led us to a 15,000 square foot branch library, which is similar in size to the other branches, but large enough so that we don't think it will have to be expanded, but we are making plans for expansion. This is a site plan of the selected option. We went through about 10 different site options, not downtown and arena sites, but they were all on this site. And we debated where the parking lot should be, where the building should be, whether we should fill in the wetlands or not. The winning concept is this one that puts the building to the southwest corner, puts the parking lot down there, relocates the community gardens to the east of the parking lot, and allows for the wetlands, which has been determined by the Corps of Engineers to be non-jurisdictional, to be filled in and to be allowed to be used for more recreation space. The Parks Department has been at the table, the school district has been at the table. Almost everyone agrees that this is a recreational park, and that with the school district's practice now of fencing around wetlands, that would not be compatible with the use either of the school, the library, or the parks. And so more fields is probably better. Now, this is a site concept. Next slide, Jody. This must be in January sometime. Okay, they're not. Okay, well, site options A and B simply show one option in keeping the wetlands where it is, maybe making it smaller and containing it because it grows. It's growing every year. We looked at a 10 to 15 year history of the wetlands, and it keeps growing. And so we do have proper drainage on the site. When the school was Discovery Elementary was built, we put a ample storm sewer in there for the entire area, and so we can drain to this storm sewer that's along Discovery Avenue. One option shows the wetlands remaining in a smaller version. The other one shows it being filled in. Interestingly enough, this wetlands is only 2 feet deep, so it's not like it's a very deep and major area that needs to be filled in. Can we skip those and go to? Okay, well, we'll talk about the exterior of the building, and then was the floor plan prior to that? Yeah, the floor plan should have been the one prior to this, but we can talk about that when we get to the sustainable slide, if that shows up. This would be a view from the northeast, northeast, looking back at this major stack area of the library. The stack area would be a higher ceiling space with glass to the north and east that would be shaded by overhangs and fins out into the parkland. Let's see what we get on the next one. Sustainable design.
I'm thinking the computer's not allowing it to read from USB drive, so I apologize for that. The council does have a small printer.
Oh, okay. Well, if you go to the
On site core, there is, I mean, on the, what the public sees, they will see everything.
okay. So let's go to the floor plan slide or sheet, which would be this one with the quarter circle shaped stack area. The entrance from the south would bring you from the parking lot. The parking lot has been designed to be a little larger than code would or zoning would ask for it to be. Since we have a park and since we have a community gardens there, we thought ample additional parking might be a good feature. So the entrance comes from the south. In the parking lot, you can see the restrooms are off to the left of that or the west. The vending area kind of glassed in like it is at the downtown library. And then the circulation desk is directly in front of you. These branch libraries don't have a lot of staff, so we wanted to make sure that we had very good control, visual control of the entire library from the circulation desk. So the circulation desk has equal distance to the entire outside wall area of the stack area, and the stack area will be divided into adult, teen, and youth areas, which will all be very visible. Directly behind the circulation area is the staff work area with a drop-off. I think you saw on the site plan there'd be a loop drive for the drop-off. And then storage room, break rooms, mechanical space as you go further to the north. There we go. To the east of the main entry is, as I said, the vending area, and then our major meeting room spaces. There are 2 meeting rooms, a large one and a medium-sized one that will be openable to each other with a movable wall. And then a toddler area and storage rooms on each end of the meeting rooms for tables and chairs. And then the space to the far right of that area is the park restrooms, which will be seasonal and maintained by the park department, and they will be used by activities to the outside, the play fields, community gardens, picnic areas, etc. So, that's the general conceptual floor plan. We have interior designers working with the library staff on the stack layouts and furniture selection and so forth. What do we have next? Oh, you're doing it that way. Sustainable design features, as I mentioned, we have a lot of large overhangs and sun shading devices to keep direct sunlight away from our library shelving and books. But daylighting is a very distinct feature that allows for energy to be saved now with the really energy efficient glass. We're talking about using a white or a cool roof on the building, natural low maintenance plantings, very efficient heating and cooling systems. We're studying geothermal hybrid systems. We have done analysis on solar and wind energy to see how it might be paid back. We are looking at concrete parking lot which reflects more light, which is more sustainable. The bottom line is that this will be a sustainable and green building. The building committee has chosen not to propose that this be a LEED certified building, which it could be if we wanted it to be, if we wanted to pay the dollars to have that done. But at this point, it looks like the equivalent of a LEED silver building. When everything kind of falls out at the end, we'll know for sure. But we are keeping track of what the points would be if we were to do that. So it's a very sustainable building. It fits in nicely. We think that it will be a very effective building. The next slide shows our exterior from the front, where it's more, I think, a little more conventional with brick matching the schools, the adjacent schools, some clear story or upper glass into the stack area, windows into our meeting room spaces. And then the drop-off to the left, the island in the drop-off area might be where we collect our surface water before it goes into the storm sewer in a BMP fashion. So I think we have a schedule. Oh, yeah, this is a slide that we had drawn by Confluence, the landscape architects, just showing some of the plantings around the building and the fact that we are respecting the wetlands if it stays, but if it goes, we will still have very nice landscaping, and that area would be filled in for play fields. And then the other site plan that we passed out today shows the building moving a little further north so that we can provide for about 30 feet of space to the south of the building for future expansion. This building is still larger than the Cayley branch, which was recently added to. So it's a good-sized building, but Councilman Rolfing was at the last public meeting, and I think he rightly so said that it doesn't make sense to do a building that is not expandable, and so we will be keeping that in mind as we develop the plan. And then lastly, our project milestones. We're nearing the end of this month where schematic design will be completed. We're going to do a preliminary cost estimate at that point. If you go down to finalize construction documents, a couple more lines down at the end of the year, we intend to take bids end of February of next year. And then construction will commence in May of next summer. And then we intend to be complete by May of the following year and open to the public in the late summer of next year. So things are going well. It's a pleasure working with the library staff and city engineering staff, Rick Bandy and company. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Questions for Mr. Osbas? Counselor Anderson Jr.
Just one question. Number one, I think it's a great-looking building, and I think it'll go into the neighborhood very nicely. I noticed a lot of glass there. In case of inclement weather or some type of weather emergency, where are people going to be moved to?
Go back. Yeah, we have discussed that. We will be designing one of the buildings, or one of the spaces within the buildings, to be inclement weather shelter. As you can see, the meeting rooms, well, if it were focused, you could see. The meeting rooms have quite a bit of space and very little window space into them. And I'm familiar with interior storm shutters that could be closed, and a space like that could be used with the walls and ceiling reinforced more strongly. That's one method. The other spaces might be back in the staff area, but I think that we're considering using perhaps the small meeting room as a place to gather when the weather's inclement.
Any other questions? Counselor Jamison.
Not so much of a design question, but just a couple general questions. How much money do we have reserved for this construction?
3.4 million.
3.4 million.
So we authorized that last year, year before, with some bonding that we did. 3.4, you said?
Yeah, that was in the quality of life
Right.
bond.
How do we make sure you stay within that budget? And what if you?
Well, what we intend to do is, after schematic design, do a cost estimate. After construction drawings are, well, almost complete, do a very detailed cost estimate. And what we do is we involve local contractors that might be interested in the project to look at our unit costs for brick and roofing and concrete and carpet. And so we have a pretty good idea at that point what the building is going to cost within maybe a 5 to 10% range. And then if it looks like we're taxing our budget when it comes to bid time, and we should still be in a very good bidding climate next spring, but if it looks like we're doing that, we would probably propose some alternates, some deduct alternates at bidding time to make sure we come within budget. But nobody has a crystal ball, but we do the best that we can to give the owner as much as they can get for the budget that they have.
Well, I'm just trying to understand the process more so on the idea. Where did 3.4 come from? Did you help us with that estimate? Did you tell us that
No.
we could get a library for 3.4? I just don't remember back.
No, that number was on the table when the city went out for RFPs and proposals for.
Maybe that's where it's
Right,
from.
and that was
design.
before I took on either, so I'm not exactly sure of the process.
I think what they probably did, Counselor, is use some regional standards on cost per square foot, knowing that they were going to need about 15,000 square feet, and they,
Okay.
those things are out there, so.
And again, I might have missed it. If you were to expand it, which way would you go?
We would expand to the south.
To the south.
And the stack area could also be expandable. The structural system would allow that.
We would actually probably move the children's area outside of that stack area and create a separate children's room, because where the meeting rooms are at, that would be less flexible to do that.
Right.
But we'd probably move them over onto this side, or maybe the teen, or maybe the adults, and rework what would need to be done.
In the libraries that we've worked on and seen, and in the literature that we read, the library itself is changing, and it's becoming kind of a mini community center, and meeting rooms and gathering spots and study areas and resource rooms are all becoming very, very popular. And so the stack area is going to be purposely left very flexible to allow for those kinds of things to happen.
Any other questions? If not, thank you both very much. We'll now hear on downtown development, Director Cooper and Erica Beck, Economic Development Manager.
Good afternoon, Mike Cooper, Planning and Building Services, and Eric Beck is joining me today. We're going to tag team to give the council a preview of a kickoff of I think, a pretty exciting process, which is to look at kind of a new vision for our downtown area. There's a couple of things that have precipitated this process in terms of the timing of it. The last time that the City Council voted to approve a downtown development plan was about 9 years ago, back in 2002. And that was adopted as our 2015 downtown development plan. And actually, about the last couple of years, we have discussed the need to go back and revisit that document and to provide a new, fresh look at what the future of downtown should be, as well as the ongoing discussions about the movement towards moving the road switching yard out of downtown. As that environmental assessment process continues to move forward with a timeline of a 2014 completion, we have never really sat down and looked at what that current switching yard land is going to be in the future. So there's a number of things that we think the timing of the process is good for us to start looking at that. So what we're going to show you today is the beginnings of a many, many month process going into 2012 to, again, look at our downtown development vision. And are we getting close? All right. This could be a short presentation without the graphics. We're going to use the overhead as our backup? All right. And you have a copy of this, and we have copies of the handout. What we're going to do is take you through some overview demographics of downtown. We're going to talk about 4 different areas, geographical areas within the downtown, to kind of give you an update of what has happened, some potential things for the future. And then at the end, we're going to talk about how we move forward with this process with some challenges and opportunities, and then a timeline. So I'm going to turn this over to Erica because she's going to take you through kind of an overview of what the downtown is. Yes.
My apologies. We want to talk just a little bit about downtown as it exists today. And I apologize, you can't see very well on this graphic right here, but the red boundary actually is how we define downtown. And we do so by all of the characteristics that you see there, attributes of downtown on the side of this graphic. So the red line basically that identifies downtown's boundary also it identifies our business improvement district boundary, our downtown design review boundary, our urban renewal district boundary. And then within this geographic area, we have about 450 acres, give or take, 100 blocks, give or take, just over 10,000 employees, just over 1,200 residents. We have 8 parks within this area, just over 580 businesses, around 3,900 public parking spaces, and as an informational item, just downtown last year, the assessed valuation was $260 million. Again, just to talk about specific current activities within the downtown right now, the State Theater is undergoing restoration. The CNA Surety construction is being undertaken on the East Bank at the Shoneman site. The River Greenway is under construction. We're working on the Uptown at Falls Park development, the River Ramp redevelopment. Raven Industries will be undertaking a renovation of their site and of their buildings. We have several loft and condo projects that are being discussed. We are working on a downtown TIF study. We are undergoing several strategic changes within our business improvement district, including a renewal that you will be seeing later on this year, followed by a couple of amendments to the way that we actually administer the bid. So restructuring of that, and then you'll hear more about the lawsuit that we're currently within also. We're also working on our update to our 2015 downtown plan, hence this presentation. And then also Jason Dennison from Downtown Sioux Falls is here today. And you maybe heard a little bit about this, but they are also, as an organization, working on an update to their downtown strategic plan. Again, just to address current activities within the downtown area, we wanted to talk a little bit about the types of incentives that we offer to the development community within the downtown area, because we do recognize that downtown does have additional costs associated with development that we want to be able to address through incentives and through public investment opportunities. The types of incentives that we have available now within downtown include tax increment financing. We actually have 5 active TIF districts in Sioux Falls. 4 of those are within the downtown boundary. And again, we're talking about a downtown-wide TIF and evaluating whether or not that would be feasible. And that's actually undergoing right now, and we anticipate having that study done within the next month and a half. We have property tax available within downtown. That's available to downtown businesses for renovation or new construction. That increases the assessed valuation of the property by $50,000 or more. We have a sales tax refund program that is available to downtown businesses qualifying. That project or that program was developed in 2004, and to date 3 companies have utilized that incentive, none of those companies being downtown. We also have a facade easement program that the city offers, and I think that most of you may be familiar with this program. It's one that we like to promote and talk about because it has done a lot of good for downtown. Actually, this program began in 2001, so 10 years ago. It's funded through our capital improvements program. To date, we've awarded 26 projects through this program. We're looking to revise the program this year potentially so that we have a little bit more flexibility in terms of the structures that we're able to address through funding and award of the facade easements. So in the past, as you may remember, this program, we've always awarded funding specifically for structures that have been on the National Register of Historic Places. But one of the things that we're looking to do is to revise that so we can also address just storefront rehab. So there are other buildings within the downtown area that aren't necessarily on the National Register of Historic Places and maybe shouldn't be on the National Register, but we also want to offer assistance to those storefronts so that they can do improvements and we can benefit as a community and as a downtown. We're also looking at expanding this program to core neighborhoods just outside of the downtown area. So if you can envision along Pettigrew Heights, along 11th and 10th Streets, or even in the Whittier neighborhood along East 8th Street over to Cliff Avenue, there are a lot of business owners in those neighborhoods that we would like to assist through a storefront rehab program. And this is an opportunity that we'll be able to assist them with this type of program funding. For the purposes of this presentation and to give you a better sense of where some of these redevelopment project areas are, we've split the downtown boundary up into 4 different sections. The Phillips to the Falls section, which is essentially Falls Park Drive on the north to 6th Street on the south. The Central section, which is essentially that core downtown area. The East Bank, which is just as it says, the East Bank, and then the Beetle Greenway, which is essentially the city's first planned development district, and it's on the southeast corner of downtown. This is a great map, and Mike and I spent a lot of time putting this together, so hopefully you can see it a little bit better in your handouts. But one of the things that we did was we went through all of the current projects that we're working on and those that we actually envision working on in the future because of redevelopment opportunities within the downtown boundary. So this map, basically, the downtown boundary is shown as in yellow. The red are redevelopment areas within the downtown. There are several yellow areas that are located within the core of downtown, and you can vaguely see them on this exhibit. But those are available properties in which tenants can move into. They're easily accessible, and they will have large vacancies, if not now, in the future. And then the green, of course, is the River Greenway, and that's essentially how we define downtown. Also, there are a couple of parcels within this map that are highlighted in blue and have a P on them. Those are actually the city's public parking lots, either surface lots or ramps. And then just to take this into a little additional detail per each of those 4 sections that we've divided downtown into, this is the Phillips to the Falls section. And again, those areas highlighted in red are redevelopment areas that we see being important to downtown success in the future. And for each of these areas, we've identified specific public investment opportunities and private investment opportunities into downtown. So the public investment opportunities in this specific area of Phillips to the Falls include the Falls Park Master Plan, West Falls Park parking area, and a future parking ramp. The private investment opportunities include the LA Bakery building, which I'll show you a slide of in just a few seconds, Falls Overlook 2, this is on North Main Avenue, the food pantry site, that's general area, Uptown at Falls Park, Phase 1 and 2, Uptown at Falls Park, Phase 3, Frankman property. I understand that none of you probably associate names with these properties like we do, but we've highlighted them in red, again, for you to look at in a little bit more detail. Sioux Steel, and then the Robinson property. So as I talked just a little bit earlier, one of the public investment opportunities that we have into downtown in this particular area is the Falls Park Master Plan. And this is a master plan for Falls Park that the Park and Rec offices are working on. I don't think that it's actually gone through any approval processes by the Parks Board, but they're moving forward to a stakeholder position where they'll actually have open meetings and talk with various stakeholders about moving forward with adoption of that master plan. The LA Bakery building, this is a structure that actually anchors our north end of downtown. It was built in 1910, and it was actually used as the LA Bakery building. The city awarded a facade easement to this property owner in 2009, and now the property owner is looking for a tenant to invest in that building. And we see that as an important building to highlight just because it does anchor our north end of downtown. And I think once we find that an ownership group is looking to invest in that in terms of bringing a tenant forward, we'll start filling in some of those pieces in between the north end of downtown and then moving farther south towards that core of downtown. We've talked a lot about the Uptown building. This is the Uptown project. This is one of the more recent buildings that we've talked a lot about with the Uptown at Falls Park Development Group. They actually have moved forward with a design review application to the Planning Commission for this building, and they're looking forward to moving forward with breaking ground on this yet this fall. It's our goal to have an update to you probably by the end of September with regard to this project just in general, and that will include a revised TIF district for your consideration for this project. And we'll also be bringing that to fiscal committee too, so that you'll have more information on that. One of the larger sites within this particular area of downtown that we wanted to highlight was the Sioux Steel site. This is a large redevelopment area, and we think that it has a lot of fantastic attributes in terms of future downtown opportunities, and so we wanted to highlight that as an opportunity. The next area is the East Bank, and Mike is going to cover that.
Similar to the first geographical area, the East Bank is defined as the property on the east side of the Big Sioux River that extends all the way over to Weber Avenue and to the eastern edge of the downtown area. And again, we've shown in red lands that have been identified as potential future redevelopment sites. So quickly taking you through some of these in more specific opportunities. In terms of public investment, as I mentioned, the rail relocation is a big one for us. With the environmental assessment moving forward into next year, it's incumbent upon us to look at future redevelopment plans for that property. The river ramp removal has been discussed for some time. The 6th Street streetscaping improvements, and the 8th Street streetscape improvements are two public projects that we would be programming through our CIP, and of course the River Greenway to continue with that. In terms of private investment, property that we'll show you called the Graham Salvage Site over along Weber Avenue, potential expansion or changes to the Killian Community College area, Sharapa Place Phase 2, R&L Supply Frank Transfer projects, which are, again, references to buildings or properties in that East Bank area, and then the River Ramp redevelopment site that we've been talking about. Community development public parking has been leading a process of looking at a proposal for removal of the river ramp as well as redevelopment of this land. As you know, we have received one proposal and we are still looking at the potential to move forward with that, or looking at a timeline for beginning the demolition of the river ramp. And Darren and Eric will be giving you more updates to that timeline in the near future. This is the land area that we've shown with the river, with the relocation of the downtown switching yard that extends all the way from 10th and 11th Streets up towards Falls Park. It's a very large tract of land that I think is going to provide us some unique opportunities for investment into the downtown area. And of course, the River Greenway is the major public investment that's going on right now within the downtown, with the completion of Phase 1 later this year between 6th and 8th Streets. We have a River Greenway master plan that extends all the way from Falls Park to Faywick Park. And we would like to continue looking at how we can implement this long-range master plan in addition to promoting private investment on both sides of the downtown river bank area. So with the master plan, as I said, we are working on completion of the first phase, which is adjacent to Sharapa Place. And as we've said with a recent announcement that we've received additional funds through the trust that was put in place a number of years ago when John Morrell was fined for polluting the Big Sioux River. We're going to keep moving forward with that project. And if you haven't been down there recently, I would encourage you to kind of look at how this is coming along with the amphitheater, the pathways, the opportunity for additional activity and access to the Big Sioux River is going to be quite dramatic. And I think it's also going to begin incentivizing additional private investment into the downtown area. 8th Street improvements is another one that we want to talk about. With the recent completion of 8th Street improvements from Phillips Avenue to Main Avenue, our goal is to continue programming funds in the CIP to go west over to Minnesota Avenue, and then also to go east over to Weber Avenue with streetscaping improvements and also with reconstruction of the Big Sioux River Bridge. That's a fairly old structure, and we would like to bring that back for additional 50 to 100 years of life, and also look at some enhancements of looking at additional lighting opportunities with the current bridge. So the streetscape improvements will continue with what we've done on Phillips Avenue, some gateway monuments, plantings, banners, wayfinding things of benches that will help enhance the downtown area. And the Graham site that we mentioned earlier is a fairly good-sized tract of land over along Weber Avenue on the west side, north of 6th Street. And this is currently a salvage operation. It includes portions of an old railroad roundhouse, which could become kind of a nice historic focus for redevelopment of this area. And then also could extend north up to the extent of the railroad right-of-way adjacent to Falls Park. So again, it has some, I think, really good opportunities for the future to look at. And then Eric will talk you through the central area of downtown.
The
The central area of downtown is really that historic core of downtown. When we actually first identified the downtown boundary, this was essentially it. And then in 2006, that boundary was expanded to include all of the area that is essentially in the downtown boundary today. All of those sites that you see, again, the red were redevelopment areas and the P public parking areas. And you'll see that most of our public parking is actually contained within this central core downtown area. And again, just like the other locations, we've identified public investment opportunities and private investment opportunities, future parking ramp, 8th Street reconstruction, again, from Main Avenue to Minnesota Avenue, 6th Street reconstruction from the bridge to Phillips Avenue, 2nd Avenue reconstruction, and then River Greenway improvements on the West Bank. Private investment opportunities including Raven Industries renovation, the 8th and Minnesota site, First National Bank's expansion, the State Theater restoration project, the 12th and Main site, and the 14th and Minnesota site. Talked a little bit about this already, but the Raven Industries project is something relatively new, and Raven Industries has recently been in contact with us regarding this potential project within their downtown facilities, and we're really excited to be partnering with them in this effort. This is a picture of their site plan, and this is actually a picture of what the building could look like in the future once the project is completed. You'll notice that one of the buildings in particular on this bottom slide is shown in a quartzite color, and that's because what exists today is actually covered in Dryvit, a stucco, and they will actually be removing that Dryvit stucco to showcase the quartzite underneath. So we're really excited about this opportunity. They'll be replacing all of the existing exterior windows in the building. It'll really give it more of a modern downtown presence. The next site that we talked a lot about in terms of private investment was the 8th and Minnesota site, and this of course is located at the corner of 8th and Minnesota, but an opportunity for us to work on development on the exterior parts of downtown. And then the First National Bank expansion, which I think is something that the bank is still eager to move forward with if they have the opportunity to gain enough tenants to move forward with that expansion. And again, that expansion was to basically add on an additional 7 stories to their existing facility. The State Theater restoration, this is a project that we're excited about because we know that it's going to bring much needed additional traffic to downtown on a more regular, consistent basis. And the State Theater restoration project is actually part of the community appeals campaign right now, and so they are out working on raising funds for the restoration. If you haven't had a chance to go through the building, I would recommend or encourage you to do so. A lot of work has actually taken place in the building already, and from the last time that I was in it, all of the dead rodents have been removed, the windows have been repaired, the roof has been replaced. It's a great place to go and view our community's history, and we actually own a facade on this building, so from that perspective we have a bit more investment into the structure itself. Another private redevelopment area within downtown is the 12th and Main site. This is directly across from the Washington Pavilion. And then the last within the central area is the 14th and Minnesota site. And this is, again, one of those cornerstones of our downtown, and we want to ensure that it's redeveloped in a consistent way with the rest of downtown. And this was a potential that the developer and the landowner had come up with a couple of years ago with regard to potential future of that site in particular. And this is actually looking east on 14th Street, so the corner there on the left would actually be the development at 14th and Minnesota. Mike's going to talk to you about the Beetle Greenway area.
The very southeast corner of downtown historically has developed as the Beetle Greenway, which has been primarily residential as well as office development. We again think that there's a couple major blocks that have some redevelopment potential. And so we've looked at those over the years of what could happen. We've done a concept plan of the possibility of higher density multifamily with maybe some office. Probably not a lot of retail potential in this area, but definitely the potential for more higher density residential. This concept shows something more like row houses or townhomes that could be developed on those 2 blocks as part of the Beetle Greenway area. So again, I think a lot of exciting potential as you look at all 4 of these geographical areas. We recently brought together a small group of people to begin just a discussion to kick off this process, knowing that we would bring to the council an overview of where we're going to be going. And we put together 5 questions that we thought we would present to the group. And so quickly we want to go through those with you today. And the first question that we posed, what changes have taken place in the downtown area over the last 10 years? Because as they say, in order to know where you're going to go, you have to kind of know where you've been. And I think it's a pretty impressive list as you begin to list these out. The Washington Pavilion, 8th and Railroad, Zip Feed, which is now Sharapa Place, Phillips to the Falls. I'm not going to go through all of these because they're just too many to mention, but I think, again, it's a pretty impressive list as you look at just the things that have been done over the last 10 years within the downtown area. And again, I think a lot of those were done because we have developed a long-range strategy or vision for downtown. The second question is, what has driven new development and investment in downtown? Why did these projects happen over the last 10 years? What was the motivation factor? As Erica went through with you, the city has provided historically some financing incentives because we know that it costs more to develop downtown. It's more expensive to put in infrastructure. It's more difficult to assemble parcels of land. And just in general, the construction costs are higher for downtown than they would be in other areas of the city. The Phillips Avenue dining, when the city council approved the removal of the loop, all of a sudden, downtown business owners began to invest and look at opportunities for using the sidewalks for things like dining. And it just seems like all of a sudden, the entire environment of downtown began to change quite dramatically. And then along came Sculpture Walk, which has been a phenomenal success over the years by adding brand new sculptures every year and then having citizens the ability to vote for the number 1 choice that we then acquire. Sculpture Walk brings people downtown from all over the city, all over the region, and even from other countries. The Greenway project, we've talked about already how that's just beginning to become an attraction for downtown. And as we continue to implement the long-range vision, it's going to become even more of a draw for downtown development. Accessibility to parking, we think with the improvements that we've made within our public parking system, whether it's the metering or the off-street parking, whether it's lots or structures, that has encouraged downtown development. Developer commitment is a big thing because if we don't have developers willing to invest in downtown, then nothing's going to happen. And we can put together all kinds of long-range plans and ideas, but if we can't entice the private sector to come forward and invest, then things aren't going to happen. So we've been fortunate that we have had local investors willing to take a chance and look at the market demand for downtown development. So we think that there has been both public and private partnerships in the past, and we see a lot of opportunity for more of those in the future. And without those investments by the city council approving projects in our CIP, we're not going to, again, set the ground or set the stage for the private sector to come along and work with us. Then we pose the question, what do people want to see downtown? And this is the result of not only discussion since the downtown plan was adopted, but also, as Erica said, with what downtown Sioux Falls is working towards with some of their strategic planning. Surveys have been done over the years, asking businesses, asking people that live downtown, asking people that come downtown, what do people want to see? Number 1 is dining. As much as we've encouraged and expanded dining opportunities. People will continue to want to see more of that. Shopping. People want to continue to see opportunities for different types of shopping experiences. More options for entertainment. More opportunities for tourism. And if we can continue to make downtown a major destination for visitors and tourists, that's going to allow us to enhance many of these other opportunities. We see opportunities for more arts and cultural events. The number one focal point for downtown in that category obviously would be the Washington Pavilion. Other opportunities for sculpture and for looking at our historical character and expanding on that. More special events and activities. We can't seem to get enough, as Councilor Anderson said earlier tonight, with all the different activities that are going on just in July alone, whether downtown or citywide, people love special events and activities. And this is just kind of a play on words with this theme of a fest or a festival. Fest could be food, entertainment, shopping, and tourism. Those seem to be the number one things that we want to draw for downtown. And then also looking at outdoor music events. We've heard a lot about there should be more opportunities for residential living in the downtown, whether it's through rental opportunities or for ownership opportunities. Condominiums, loft apartments, and workforce housing. All of those different types of housing markets, we should be identifying ways to implement within the downtown area. This is just a graphic, which again, those of you who are looking at this, it's kind of hard to see, but this is just an example of different major show places within downtowns throughout the country, and it says Saturday night downtown, and the group that we talked to said, well, what about Tuesday night downtown? Or Wednesday night downtown, or Thursday night downtown? Could we create as a major destination something like a Times Square or a French Quarter? That might be reaching out a little bit, but think about that in terms of what downtown Sioux Falls could become as a major destination. And so what market forces are going to impact the potential for downtown development? Right now, we've identified that as of last year, there was about a 15% vacancy within our downtown office and retail tenant spaces. Those are, again, opportunities for us to draw in within existing buildings, additional economic development. As I said earlier, and Erica has talked about residential opportunities, we want to update our census results that are now about 4 years old to look at what is the potential for the market downtown in terms of employees or other people that want to live down in the downtown area, and the different demographics, because we've heard from the young professionals and we've heard from the empty nesters that both of those demographic groups are interested in looking at opportunities for downtown residential living. And then finally, entertainment. We can't talk enough about, right now we have 30 official downtown events and activities. We know that we can look at creating a more enhanced entertainment district within the downtown, but how do we do that so that it's compatible with the other uses, such as residential, office, or retail? And then what can we do to enhance the year-round opportunities for the downtown area? Because again, we don't want to just look at downtown as a summertime place to go to. We want it to become a year-round destination for all these different exciting things that we can throw out there. So that's kind of where we're at, and as we've wrapped up kind of the challenges and opportunities, another key thing that we're going to have to look at through this process is what are some barriers to overcome for promoting downtown investment. As we talk about what we have done, what we would like to see in the future, opportunities, there's also going to be some barriers that we want to overcome. Parking always comes up every time we talk about downtown development. and we do have some long-range plans for additional parking in different areas of the downtown. The entitlement process, which is the permitting. We kind of had a presentation to the City Council last week on the city's entitlement process, and we know there's some things that we can work at to improve on that, because again, an investor, whether they're local or from outside of Sioux Falls, that is looking at doing a downtown project is going to need some hand-holding to work through all the hoops and make sure that their project can be successful. The cost of development, as we've said earlier, is a barrier that we want to overcome with additional opportunities for incentives or other creative financing and access to financing, looking at potential office and retail tenants, looking at those residential opportunities. And then also we've heard that let's not just focus within those red boundaries of the downtown, but let's continue to focus on the adjacent core neighborhoods, because if we don't take a strong effort, a proactive effort to look at revitalization opportunities within those adjacent core neighborhoods, that could potentially limit or become a barrier to promoting downtown investment. Erica is going to go through with you the next steps, and then we'll end that with any Q&A that you might have with this quick overview.
As Mike indicated earlier, this is a process. We started out with the 2015 downtown plan beginning in 2002 and being approved in 2004. So these things take time and they are a process, and we want to make sure that we get as many stakeholder groups, focus groups, and just regular people that are interested in downtown development involved in this process. So we've identified kind of a tentative timeline here where we will identify stakeholder groups during the first part of August. We will schedule and facilitate discussion meetings roughly the latter part of August through the end of October. We'll formulate goals for our 2025 downtown plan during the month of October, and simultaneously we'll be researching and identifying implementation methods for those goals at that same time. Our goal then to have a draft updated downtown plan within the time frame of November 1st to January 30th, and be reviewing that with stakeholder groups and focus groups such as Downtown Sioux Falls, the Planning Commission, the Parks Boards, and a lot of other stakeholder groups that are interested in the downtown success. We would bring this to the Land Use Committee for review tentatively in April of 2012, and then seek City Council approval in May of 2012. Just to touch briefly on some of those other focus groups, because we want to, again, try to get as many people involved as possible. We're looking for young professionals, we're looking for families, we're looking for businesses, retailers, restaurant owners, residents, anyone that's interested in participating to contact us, or contact us even through Downtown Sioux Falls. Share with us your ideas, where you want to see downtown move, because we want this project to be a success, and we don't want it to be a plan that sits on a shelf. We want it to be implemented, and we want to see things happen within our downtown that will improve our entire city. Other than that, if you have any questions, both Mike and I can address those.
Councilor Brown.
Question for Director Cooper, please. Last year on the facade easement program, I lost the argument to keep the funding level at the same. It was cut pretty dramatically. I see in the proposal this year, it's gone up more than double, pretty dramatically, but moved from your department to community development. I was wondering if you can give us a sense of why, one, the change in attitude about funding facade easement, and two, why it's moving from different departments.
We felt that with the change of responsibilities between planning and community development is going to become, or has become, the major downtown development and economic development department for the city. And so we felt it was natural for that department to administer that facade easement program. And then during the discussions of that transfer, again, as Erica mentioned in one of the earlier bullets, there's a desire, I think, to enhance or to expand that program to make it more than just a facade easement, to make it more of a storefront renovation program. And I think in the past, with the CIP being more challenged, we think that again in the future, there's a real payback. When we invest these dollars, the private sector puts in many, many more dollars than what we put in. And so we think we have an opportunity to expand the dollar amount as well as the parameters of how that program can be used in the future.
One more question, and I don't know if you or Erica wants to answer this, but under the previous program, when it was just those on the National Registry, it was just a handful of buildings left. And then I'm wondering, do you have any sense of how many total buildings this will encompass as you expand the program, and will historic buildings get a priority, or how will you rank that?
Go ahead.
We actually have drafted revised guidelines for the program, and we'll always give some special recognition to those buildings that are on the National Register. But what we've seen in some instances is that in order to move forward with the project, a developer or property owner needs to know within a certain amount of time whether or not they're going to be awarded this type of funding, so that they can add that into their pro forma and ensure their financing bank that they can actually move forward with the project. And because you have to go through the process of getting onto the National Register, sometimes that takes a long time, even up to 18 months. And so what we wanted to do was revise our program guidelines so that we could react quicker to those projects and see more good actually take place within downtown and the adjacent core neighborhoods. We don't actually have a number on the buildings that could be eligible.
Kinds of buildings?
I'm sorry?
Kinds of buildings that would be eligible?
Commercial buildings for the most part, or nonprofit organizations that are housed in specific buildings. And that includes within the downtown area and outside of downtown. Just to give you a couple of examples, when I say nonprofit type of structures, the State Theater obviously is not a commercial structure, at least it wasn't when we pursued the facade easement, but we felt it was in the best interest of downtown and all of Sioux Falls to pursue a facade easement on that structure and to secure it. The Coliseum is another example of that type of project. And so we want to try to provide as much opportunity for people to come forward if they have ideas that don't necessarily seem to fit our regulations and guidelines, come forward and ask us, because we're interested in working with everyone.
Thanks, Erica.
Mm-hmm.
Councilor Anderson Jr.
To continue with the facade easement questions, how did the facade easement program come into effect? Was it a resolution, part of ordinance, or was it just a program that was created?
I think we're going on about 10 years since we adopted that program, and that was done based on approval with the City Council, because the City Council obviously had to approve the funding of it each year. And it was a program that was really a spin-off of what used to be called the Main Street Sioux Falls process, and now it's downtown Sioux Falls. But one of the components of that was that through the National Park Service, there were guidelines that if you followed, that this facade easement program could be maintained. And then there's also another federal program that we really haven't talked about, which is a historic tax credit program that's also available to certain buildings. But that facade easement program was originally approved through support of the City Council.
Okay.
A little over 10 years ago, I believe it was.
Okay, with that then, with some of the changes that you're proposing to make to the program, are those changes going to come to the City Council?
We could certainly do that. I mean, right now, the way it's administered is that the Board of Preservation reviews proposals, and then those proposals are submitted to the mayor for the mayor's final approval for the funding.
Right, but those would just be proposals for businesses or whoever is requesting the money. Here,
That's
we're
correct.
talking about making a change to the program on who's going to now be eligible. I would like to see that come
So
to the
that's
council
something that I
or
think we would look at working with the
to
council
a
on.
committee, definitely.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Councilor Jameson?
Mike, I'm not sure if this is possible, but is there any way to get a summary sheet of, like over the last 10 years, I think you outlined how many dollars has been invested by the city in downtown?
Sure.
And
Through
then-
all different projects, you mean? Public
Right.
projects? Sure.
Public projects, and then, you know, maybe a as well, the property values, how they've changed over the 10 years. And then going forward, what major investments do we see invested in downtown by the city? And so somehow we could kind of extrapolate these numbers to see what effect it has when we spend public dollars,
Right.
how much private money will follow, can we rely on the past history to predict the future, those kinds of things. Just a little numbers would, I think, help quantify this whole program.
Yeah, we can certainly do that as the part of this planning process.
Okay.
Yes.
Counselor Anderson Jr.
And Councilman Jameson, on something like that, I think Erica actually put something together for me. I don't know if it was a 10-year, but I think I still have that email somewhere, so I think that'll be pretty easy information to get.
So that will give us a rapid
already
response
asked.
time here. Okay.
Any other questions? If not, thank you both.
Thank you, and we will certainly involve the council in this process as we move forward.
Thank you. If there's no other business to come before this body, we will adjourn. The Land Use Committee meeting will start in approximately 5 minutes. Thank you. The meeting is adjourned.